either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And today we are kind of following through on a threat we had talked about previously. Again, we are covering a sequel, not only a sequel, but a sequel to a sequel.
Yes, of my favorite franchise of all time.
Yes.
I freaking love Mad Max.
Today we are doing Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, so not even the second one, which is arguably one of the best films in cinema history.
Well, in the Mad Max series, I'll say.
Yes, because personally I think the fourth one is one of the best things ever created.
Yes, and like one of the ones where like I've only seen Fury Road fully in black and white. I still haven't fully seen the color version.
But the black and white version's so good. But Thunderdome, Beyond Thunderdome, has a very special place in my heart.
Yes, this is like one of the movies, I think like when we started getting to know each other, like this is the one you had asked me multiple times if I had seen.
Yes.
And
because this is fucking right up your alley, man.
Yeah, no, it is and it isn't. I'll get into it.
Yes.
But yeah, it also for me fills in a bunch of holes because I did watch Road Warrior as well because I'd never seen it.
Good.
Both of these movies filled in a big gap for me because I went from...
Because there's actually lore in Mad Max.
Well, I went from the first Mad Max to Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes, and boy howdy does it not explain itself.
There is a huge leap. And let's be honest, the first Mad Max movie is kind of a garbage movie.
Oh no, it is. The fact that there are 4 of these, 2 of which a lot of people feel very strongly about being like some of the best movies they've ever seen, is mind-boggling after watching the first one.
Yeah.
'Cause like, yeah, it's fun, but why is there...
The first one is so boring. You spend like most of the movie, it's like a drama between him and his wife, and they go on vacation, and then she dies, and then it's like the last 20 minutes of an almost 2-hour movie.
Yes, which is why every time we have, especially with our friend group, ever seen a Mad Max film, usually me dragging y'all to see a Mad Max movie, whenever anyone's like, who's that? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Who's that person? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like Elijah, last time we were watching an episode of Chainsaw Man, he's like, well, that's a lot of new faces.
Yes, you don't care about any of them.
Yeah, no, immediately after something happened, and I told him, like, I was gonna tell you, don't get attached to any of them.
Yeah. Again, this is my favorite version of Mad Max, and none of these characters come back, and that includes this version of Max.
And so, for those who don't know what Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is about, it's the third movie in the post-apocalyptic Mad Max series in which Max must try and help a group of children survive and destroy the matriarchy of Bartertown?
Yeah, which is...
Or dictatorship? Dictatorship's the better word.
Yeah, kind of a dictatorship. The entire premise of Mad Max in general is this wild journey through a post-apocalyptic, kind of futuristic.
No, not even
but
futuristic.
But also very dystopian, but in like a dark, grimy, the world is falling apart, every man for himself sort of way.
At the time, futuristic. Because if I remember right, this movie's set in like 2005.
Yeah, no, they thought that the end was coming soon.
Well, and that's another thing too that I think's interesting about the Mad Max franchise is that it's not a nuclear post-apocalyptic. No. It's just post-economic collapse.
Kind of yes and no.
Okay.
Mad Max has...
Maybe the original 3 movies.
Okay, so this is where Mad Max gets complicated, and again, where like normally when people watch Mad Max, I say it doesn't matter, you don't care. So Mad Max, the first thing that will help you understand the Mad Max world is that it is Australian based. Mm-hmm. It was meant to be like everything was meant to exist in Australia. The whole thing was meant to be set in Australia post some nuclear event that also collided with a global economic shutdown.
Okay.
Depending on how deep into the lore you want to go, that can all like be played out, and like there are people out there who have gone in depth to like discover the past history of Mad Max, because there's hints to it, which is part of the fun throughout all 4 of the movies, and also like the comic books and the actual books and all of the side stuff.
It's like Alien.
It's a lot like Alien, or like Riddick, where like if you felt like it, you could like piece all of this together. But the only like real background that is nice to know is that if you watch all of them, you can piece together that Max used to be, before the apocalypse / fall of the world, a police officer in Australia. He had a wife and a daughter who he loved very dearly, who were taken or / killed, and it haunts him now. And he is on a vendetta to both live and to remember them.
I think that's the newer Max then, or is it?
It runs through them all. The daughter, I think, is the newest addition.
Yeah, because there's no daughter in Mad Max 1.
No, there's not. But they think that she gets added somewhere in one of the books or the comics, which I haven't gotten all the way through. But again, if you felt like it, you could piece all this together. And there was originally supposed to be a TV show that was going to be in, like, I think 2017 it was supposed to come out. That was going to, like, help piece the backstory of Mad Max together. It flopped terribly, unfortunately. And so we don't even have a pilot episode.
I wonder.
Yeah, I think it will come back around, especially after how well Fury Road did.
There's 2 sequels planned already.
Oh, yeah. Movie-wise, definitely. This TV show, though, has literally been in the talks since the original one came out in 85. So, like, people have always expressed interest in, like, knowing the past of Mad Max, but part of the fun is that, like, none of this makes sense. It's all a hot shit show, and that's the best part of Mad Max.
I want to correct you real quick. Thunderdome is from 85.
Yes.
The original's a little bit older.
Yes, sorry.
But back to Thunderdome. It's written by Terry Hayes with characters by George Mill and Byron Kennedy. It's directed by Miller and George Ogilville, or Ogilville. I'm probably some Aussie way to say it that I butchered. It stars Mel Gibson and Tina Turner.
Yes.
And now, I didn't realize how kind of all over the place, like, looking into this, Miller's directing career is.
Oh boy, is it ever.
He's the sole director and one of the writers of the original Mad Max and The Road Warrior.
Yeah, of course.
But he also directed a segment of The Twilight Zone, the movie, The Witches of Eastwick, Babe Pig in the City, Happy Feet 1 and 2.
Hell yeah.
And then, most recently, Mad Max Fury Road and 3,000 Years of Longing.
Yeah, like, I, without knowing it, have enjoyed most of his stuff. I also looked into George Ogilvy. It looks like he does mostly TV shows from Australia, which I don't get here, so sorry.
Miniseries and just that sort.
Yeah, so I don't really know much of his work, but I will ask my Australian family and friends who do live down there if his stuff is popular.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It seems a bit older, too, so...
Well, my friends are older, so I might like it.
But as for Kennedy, he wrote the original story of Mad Max and Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, but this is pretty much most of his career, as he died in 1983 at 33 from a helicopter crash scouting locations for Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, and there is a wonderful little tribute card in this movie dedicating it to him.
Yeah, and his death almost killed the project a little bit, too.
I mean, he was a huge part of the originals.
And Miller just didn't think it would work. He could do the same thing without his creative partner involved.
Yeah. Which is part of the reason why he asked other George, to step in.
Yeah.
Is because he felt that not only was, like, he ill-equipped to handle this by himself, but he even said in a couple of interviews that I listened to that, like, he just felt like every time he stepped on, like, it was too much for him by himself. He needed a second hand. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, it's a big loss for someone you've worked with on three big pictures, and I think they worked on, like, 1 or 2 other things together, too.
Yeah, and for them, Mad Max was a huge part of their movie-making career. Like, yes, they've done other stuff, but for them, like, this was a passion project.
As for Hayes, I'm actually a little bit familiar with his work, as he worked on the screenplay for The Road Warrior. But he also worked on another movie that I've brought up a couple times in this podcast. Payback.
Yeah.
Another movie with Mel Gibson.
Yeah. He manages to be in a lot of the same stuff for them.
Yeah.
It works out.
Yeah, and also he wrote From Hell.
Of course.
Or did the screenplay for it, at least. Now, I don't think Gibson or Turner really need an introduction, but
they're gonna get one anyway.
We'll do anyway since it's their first appearance in a movie we've reviewed. Gibson, definitely a controversial figure at times, but we're not getting into that. Gibson was, for me at least, an iconic childhood character, especially with his roles in Lethal Weapon, the Lethal Weapon franchise, Forever Young, Conspiracy Theory, Braveheart, The Patriot, Signs.
He managed to be in a lot of movies that, like, for reasons I still don't fully understand, we watched in high school. Like, in class, they'd be like, time to watch The Patriot. And you're like, why are we watching this in school?
History.
Yeah, but, like, for a very long time, he was very recognizable name and face, and he was Mad Max for the first 3 films. Yeah. So, like, yeah.
Mad Max was, like, his big breakout role, so.
Yeah, and while I am not upset about the role of Mad Max being passed on, especially since I think new Mad Max is fantastic. Love Fury Road and everything about it. There is something to be said about having the same actor play all 3 movies that does really tie this together, especially since literally nobody else in the Mad Max universe seems to make a second appearance.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of them die by the end of the movie.
And even the ones who don't, like, there is one character who some fans have, like, tried to piece together, but both director and the actor himself who played the background side character in 2 of the movies mentioned that, like, no, we just liked working with him. He was a good background character. Yeah. The Euro delivery guy.
Hey, I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
But as for Turner, she's more known for her music, but outside of Mad Max, she's not been in a lot of movies.
Yeah, it was kind of the time frame, too, when, like, pop stars just kind of got into movies for, like, a handful of
they
scenes.
Still do.
Yeah, there was, like, a special moment, though, back in the 80s and 90s where, like, you were just almost required to do, like, 5 films, and one of them had to be real zany.
Yeah, it's like, I can't remember who was being interviewed, but they were talking about, like, how being a comedian nowadays, you can't just be a comedian. Your agent wants you to get into acting, wants you to do 20 other things, be on social media.
Yeah, back in the 90s and 80s, it was, you're a really big, well-known singer. Let's stick you in at least one film and see if it works.
Yeah. As for Turner, if I remember right, her role is the mayor in The Last Action Hero. She's also in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which did not know was a movie.
Yeah, I've seen it. My husband hated it violently, but that's okay.
Your husband's also a Beatles fan, so...
Yeah, he has strong feelings in general about all of the movie adaptations of their work.
Well, maybe we'll get into it one day just to piss him off.
We should specifically do Beyond the Universe just to make him angry.
But other than that, the other movie that I haven't seen but I'm curious about, she's in a movie called Tommy, about a blind and deaf man or teenager who is somehow a pinball wizard and becomes the leader of an underground cult.
Is this just the plot to Pinball Wizard the Rock song?
I don't know,
I
maybe.
hope it is! That sounds dope as hell!
It probably is. I don't know anything about it other than I saw it. I'm like, what the hell is this movie?
You know what? I've always said that song needed a full movie behind it. I was the one too slow.
And so, our sources for today, the making of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome featurette, as well as interviews with Mel Gibson and George Miller, interviewed by Bobby Wiggett? Yeah, as well as Tina Turner for Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, also interviewed by Bobby Wiggett. An interview with Mel Gibson and George Miller for Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome by John C. Tibbetts.
And also a delightful article from Wikipedia on the influence that Mad Max has had throughout the ages.
I did not read that one.
It was very lengthy. It was mostly a list, but it was very insightful.
Yeah. And honestly, like, for how much you've talked about this movie for the past half decade.
Oh, I hyped this sucker up.
There's not really any commentary or much to talk about
because this
movie.
Is the worst of them all. Especially because, like, when we first started being friends, I think we went and, like, we watched the new Mad Max in black and white, which for, I think, me and my husband, that was the first time we'd seen it in black and white, and it was the first time you had seen it, right?
Yeah, that was the first time I saw it. Yeah, no, Phil and Erica bought it.
Yes, they own it.
We watched it on their DVD.
Because the director's cut is the black and white one.
Yeah, the black and chrome edition.
It's very shiny.
Yeah.
And that DVD has so much, like, information about, like, the making of Mad Max, the vision behind Mad Max, and this one has nothing.
No, not like, the interviews were, like,
They're so dry.
There's only, like, 3 interviews that I could find from any of them.
Yes.
And, like, maybe a little article here or there, but, like, it was mainly talking about the new the new Mad Max and not the old ones.
Yes, and normally when that sort of stuff happens, it's usually because it's a role that the actor wasn't really excited for, or it's a production that the director was kind of just having to produce. Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, though, is the exception to that rule. As far as I can find, everyone who worked on this enjoyed working on it. All of the actors really had a great time being in the film. The director, like, yes, was mourning the loss of a dear friend who normally worked with him, but Mad Max was his passion projects. He loved working with Mad Max. But no one had anything to say about this movie.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little bit of a lighter on the information episode.
But to be fair, and part of the reason why I specifically wanted to do this one, not just because it's my favorite, is because, honestly, not knowing about Mad Max is truthfully part of the enjoyment of Mad Max.
Oh, yeah. And so, I had watched, because I had asked you, and I don't think you responded to me on it.
Probably not.
I had started Mad Max, because I thought Beyond Thunderdome was the second movie.
No.
And I'm like, do I need to watch these in order? And you didn't respond, so I'm like, all right, well, I'll just keep going through it.
And the answer is no.
No.
The only, like, I mean, yes, there is plot and lore kind of woven through all of them, but part of the fun of Mad Max is not knowing. Like, even with the newest one, I think most of our friends went in without having seen a single other Mad Max thing. I know my husband went to the theaters with me to watch it in 3D, and he had never even heard of Mad Max before that moment. And honestly, he loved it. And that's part of the joy and fun of Mad Max, is it's just a crazy mess, no matter which version you're watching.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very jarring for me going from Mad Max 1 to...
Yes, Mad Max 1 is, I think, the outlier.
Yeah. But before we get into it, Chris, what are we drinking today?
Well, we have acquired the most rare and delicious of substances in the third one, because we're not gross in doing the fourth one.
Yeah.
Yet. We have water.
Irradiated with watermelon flavor.
Delicious.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Oh, yes.
We have a rather simple opening credit roll. Like, there's nothing special. It's just text on a black screen.
You know, classy. Gotta keep it simple, really.
It's kind of nice because it does immediately cut over a vast desert and just zoom in on a camel caravan that's getting attacked by a plane right away.
Hell you.
Which, nice father and son bonding moment for the post-apocalypse.
You know, which is nice, especially because the apocalypse of Mad Max, if you feel like really studying it, gets worse and worse every movie. And this is like a nice little, like, last hurrah, there's still family units before the fourth one where everything's just a shit show.
There's a family unit in the fourth one.
I don't know if family's the right word for that.
They're family. They're family, and they are family. I will argue they are family
in the most direct term of the law.
In direct term of the law, and in the Fast and the Furious version of family.
Okay.
Ride or die, bitch.
Ride or die, bitch is correct.
Yeah. And it's kind of a weird opening too, because you're
not introduced to these people whatsoever.
No, because immediately after, like, you find out it's Mad Max that they attacked, and it's just like, okay, where is Mad Max? Where'd he come from? Where's he going? Why does he have camels?
Where is he coming from and where is he going is just the entire question of the Mad Max franchise, though. He doesn't know, and nobody else does either. When the whole world's a big old desert, you just kind of hope for the best.
Yeah, and I don't know. It is also funny listening to, like, directors complain. about working with animals, because
yeah,
Miller hated working with the camels and the monkey.
Which, he's the one who put them in there, so I don't know why he's upset.
Yeah. Which, I mean, yeah, they're animals. It's always funny to me. He didn't go on a Del Toro horse rant, but...
That is true. He did not go on a Del Toro horse rant, which is good, probably because I think it's just the monkey that, like, has any length of appearance. The camels are in for, like, a brief amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, there was... Well, what we see in the movie itself, because there was quite a bit that was cut. There
was a lot that was cut. However, I think most of the desert scenes were filmed in the actual Australian desert, which, you know, great, looks amazing. Does cause heat sickness and several people fainting. And while camels are good, they're not native to deserts, so I don't think we were out there with the camels for a very extended period of time.
Camels are from arid areas, aren't they?
Yeah, not the desert of Australia.
Oh, yeah. True.
I don't think anything is native to the desert of Australia.
We don't know. You can't get that far inland.
Oh, you can, but, like, I'm not going. It's definitely not camels. I know that.
Yeah. But that being said, this movie is well shot. And from the very get-go. The setting sun kind of reminds me of Star Wars a little bit.
Yes.
A little westerny.
Okay. Star Wars, people have always, like, compared Star Wars to, like, an old samurai film and, like, also old westerns, which, of course, we've talked about numerous times how those two are tied together forever.
Heavily.
And Mad Max, without really putting a lot of try into it, manages it to be almost a western at times.
Yeah.
But, like, without any of the western tropes, which is fascinating.
No, I would argue it does have a lot of the western tropes, like setting them out into the desert on horseback without food or water.
There is a lot of the desert part.
Yeah.
But also, like, Mad Max's character, especially, I think, Mel Gibson's portrayal of Max, really drives home, like, this concept of, like, the Lone Ranger, who's, like, been kicked out of town, doing his own thing.
Out on a frontier town that's
is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy?
Outback.
Yeah. It is very Western with the most grunge overtones.
I'll get into that a little bit.
The punk is hard in this.
I have a different name for this type of movie.
Oh, I can feel that.
But I do have a question for you on this.
I might have an answer.
So they focus quite heavily in the very beginning. We find out later why he has what the whistle's in the movie for, but, like, where does the whistle come from? Anything else? Because it wasn't in Fury Road.
No.
Okay.
Some people, like I said, if you dig real far, someone will tie stuff back somehow.
Okay.
There is, I think, a fan theory that, like, ties the whistle back to his police days, thus, at this point, wife, and then later on, daughter, who may or may not be dead. She's probably dead. So, like, but, like, with all things Mad Max, it's just there.
Okay. I'll accept it. I was just curious, because it just felt like a weird moment for the intro of the movie of, like...
Mad Max does a good job of, like, each movie trying to give a new, like, token to Max, whether that be a flash or a whistle or a monkey, to, like, try and make him less of, like, the shell of an empty wandering warrior and more of, like, a broken man with past hopes and dreams. But you can't know those past hopes and dreams.
None of that comes across in any of the... Or at least in Road Warrior Beyond Thunderdome. No,
I agree that the, like, true-hearted intent, I agree, does not come across. However, I do think that's part of, like, it's details like this that have created the fan space for Mad Max to live as long as it has. Because these movies don't come out super close together.
No, like, I think between this one and Fury Road, it's like, what, 40 years?
Yeah, and... people lost their minds for Fury Road.
Yeah.
So, like, and, like, they're talking about another one coming out, and even that one's gonna be a good jump away.
Yeah, it's Furiosa, and I think there's another one he's wanting to do. I think Furiosa's coming after the other one.
Yeah, I think so too, and, like, that's still quite a long jump, and so, yeah, you don't need to know, you don't need to remember, but we'll pretend. Like, it's nice to pretend that you, like, have something to, like, potentially tie together, even if it's a full red herring.
Yeah. Okay.
It just adds a level of detail that whether or not it's real, it is interesting.
Okay. Well, Mad Max finds a trade route to Bartertown, which...
Cleverly named.
There's so much smog and browns and tans for, like...
yes.
Like,
there's a color palette to this movie, isn't there?
Very much so.
Yes, 50 Shades of Beige.
And I do like the sign, it's like Bartertown for a better tomorrow.
Yes, it's trying so hard to be like a good place. But it's run on pig farts, so it can't be that good.
We'll get into that. But it also feels like that stereotypical, like, JRPG town where, like, that's the only purpose is, like, this town is a market. Nothing else ever happens to this town besides being a market.
Yes. And I think that's the, like, beauty of Mad Max is it has that 80s, 90s point-and-click adventure sort of vibes where, like, this is the most impractical living situation on the planet. But you don't question it. No,
because, yeah, there's, like, water vendors out there and Mad Max has got a radon detector.
Yeah, for no gut. Like, they don't explain why at all. Like, if you're big into the lore, you can, like, pull it all together. But most people watching this movie, and the rest of the Mad Max franchise for that matter, will not know what is happening. And you're just there for the ride. You're like, yes, this is how the world functions. Of course. Look at everyone's outfits. That's what normal people look like. Yeah, because, like, the first interaction we see, like, in Bartertown proper, is, like, the gatekeeper asking, what do you have to bar? Or he's telling a guy he'll trade for whatever item he's trading. He can either give him, like, food or, like, the only part I remember of this trade is 2 hours with a woman. Yes. Yeah. Again, the most impractical setup of a town. Yeah. But you fully buy it. Yeah, because Mad Max comes in and he's like, what do you have to barter? Nothing. Well, no, he doesn't even say nothing. He's like, I'm looking for someone. And they're like, well, we can't accept that. Just shove off. Bye. But I do love the whole, like, boomstick versus the sword Indiana Jones moment. Yes. It's fun. Yes, it's got some humor. Like, it knows that it's ridiculous. Yeah, and here's the thing is, like, before we saw everyone just kind of, like, wearing desert garb, like the stereotypical, like, post-apocalyptic rags over whatever. But once you're inside, everyone looks like they're wearing rave gear, but without the neon. Yes. Everyone looks like they're about to go clubbing. But they've been clubbing yesterday and the day before, and no one's taken any of it off yet. Yes. I also like the signage in the background, pigs equal power. Yes. Like, because, like, at this point, you still don't know that this place is run on farts. Yeah, but also, like... What a stance. Well, because I paused it thinking, like, are they protesting something? And it's just like... There's nothing to protest in this world. No, you either like, die or don't. They're, like, advertising the town like it's something to be proud of or something. And, like, we're not talking just, like, a banner in the background. We're talking, like, people holding multiple of these banners. Yes, they are very proud of their pig-powered town. Yes. And after a very brief discussion, Max is let in with a little funny moment of him being forced to drop off his weapons and pulling weapons out of places. There's so many weapons. But honestly, Max is a weapon, so, like, why bother? Yep. And into Bartertown we go, where it looks like meat's on the menu, boys. Haha! Yeah. Which is good, because, again, like I said, the Mad Max world slides off into real bad conditions pretty fast, so at least there's, like, normal-ish looking food here. Yeah. Well, and it's just a hodgepodge of styles everywhere. Like, they did a good job of making it feel like it was thrown together. Yes. Without being too alien. Like, it still looks Earth. Well, and we also get, like, little moments, like, in this movie where stuff... This movie, at least of the three Mad Maxes, it feels like a lot of random shit was shoved together, because in the selling off of the camels, which I think is a great part, yes, where he's advertising of them getting non-gas powered, and also you see the guy who stole them from the get-go just kind of sneaking off into the background, and then you don't see him until, like, the end of the movie. Like, it just, there's so much crap thrown together, and I love how it's low-tech, and I wouldn't call it a steampunk style just yet. But it is in the same vein of styling. Yeah. Like, we're getting adjacent to grunge punk. We're getting close, but we're not there. A bit crust punky. Yeah, definitely rusty. Yeah. Also, I like the Atomic Cafe. I forgot to look in to see if, like,
I'm sure this movie probably influenced the Fallout series in some way or another, but
I mean, honestly, if it's post-apocalyptic, it's taken a page from Mad Max. Is kind of the running joke, because it's hard to imagine the, nuclear end of the world without accidentally being on Mad Max planet.
Yeah. The only one I can think of that's not like that, and it's not really post-apocalyptic, it's more dystopian, but like the RoboCop series, that's set in like 93 or something, or 97.
Boy, 97 had a look, though. It's hard to get away from just the iconic imagery of RoboCop.
RoboCop is
so good. So much hairspray.
But into the tower we go, where there's a sexy sax man named Tauntaun Tattoo,
who is in a parentheses at the end of the movie, Sax Man.
Yeah. Also, fun little bit that I learned, and it wasn't from any of the commentary from this movie, but the milky eyes he has.
Yes.
Those eyes come from someone who's viewed an atomic blast.
Yes.
Man
looks straight at it.
And I know this because my brother sent me some TikTok about some dude explaining that the Hyuga clan from Naruto's eyes are based off the same thing too.
Yes.
So, nice little touch, like, it makes him stand out, but, like, you don't know why.
Yeah. And also, it adds that level of, like, because this Mad Max tries very hard to be like, oh, the world is ending around us. Whereas, like, later on Mad Max, we have clear evidence of nuclear problems having occurred. Like, nobody's normal. Everyone's missing or has too many limbs. This is, like, that nice sweet spot of, like, okay, we can pinpoint a few people, but nobody's growing an extra head yet. Yet. We're getting there.
But he gets a cool little name of Raggedy Man, as we're introduced to, and she's only called Auntie in the movie, but her full name is dope. All these characters, their full names are dope. Yes. Her name is Auntie Entity.
Yes.
Like, that is a dope name.
Everyone has a cool name. Like, if you bother to, like, go through the entire credits section, there are characters that you didn't realize had a name because they never say it. And they have, like, a full first, middle, and last name.
Yeah. Tauntaun Tattoo is a pretty awesome name. It's got a nice alliteration to it.
Yeah, and do we care at all what this man's name is?
No.
No, he's just the saxophone guy.
Yeah, he never actually, like, gets a name in the movie.
Not really, no.
But Auntie is played by Turner, and Max is put to a test, which... he's a badass. He beats them up.
Of course he does. It's Max.
Yeah, there's no way around it. And they also tell him that he's the first to survive it.
Wow, look at him go. Before we go too far, though.
Yeah.
Miss Tina Turner's appearance.
Yes.
In this film. So she didn't do her own costuming, because there is even though everyone looks distinct in the Mad Max franchise, there is an overarching, like, theme that the costuming department always does a spot-on job for. However, she did do all her own makeup for this because she felt very connected to Auntie.
I dig it.
Like, as someone who, like, regularly performed on stage in the 80s and 90s, who better to do your makeup than Tina Turner?
To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Tina Turner.
Tina Turner is like a classics-looking powerhouse. So, like, when she shows up with that much hair that is just teased and hairsprayed off the planet, like gravity-defying hair, honestly not too far off from what she might have worn on stage.
Okay.
She was never, like, Lady Gaga level, like, out there, but she was a big star, which meant big hair, big clothes, big outfits, big performances.
Yeah, we're still in the era of hair metal and stuff, so yeah.
Yeah. And while she didn't do metal per se, like, it was a lot of pop, it was
rock,
it was Tina Turner's style. If you haven't heard it, put on the classic 80s, it will show up. But even, like, just about everything in the 80s hair metal managed to influence to some degree, and it was the volume of hairspray that definitely was out there. So, like, it's not like Tina Turner is, like, in this, but you have to, like, squint and, like, kind of look around the costumes like you do in some other Mad Max characters. Not this one. That is blatantly Tina Turner.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of her outfit, she said that it was made with a leather butcher's apron dog muzzles, and it weighed like 79 pounds in all.
And honestly, like, that's so on point for the costuming in this show, because it is very much like garbage hot glued together, but in a crafty, artful way.
Oh yeah, no, it is creative seeing like the different things that they put together, because like I'm rewatching the classic Star Wars right now.
Yes.
And
there's a lot of like feeling of similarity, but like Star Wars bothers to like create something new with their potato sacks.
But I also, they do, but they don't at the same time, because like I kind of forgot that there's the one part at the end of The Empire Strikes Back where there's a robot with like clearly a microphone attached to his face.
Yes.
And it's like, okay. But like she said that like this was like even though it was 79 pounds, she wouldn't have done it any other way. She said it was like the perfect outfit for that role.
It really was. Like she embodies this like character of, is the mayor of Trash Town good or bad? We don't know. She's kind of a powerhouse. She looks like a lot because she is. Like, everyone stands out in this movie. Like, there's no, like, blending in, because there is no background to blend into. But she stands out more than anyone else. She almost feels taller than everyone else, even though she's not, you know? It might be the hair, though.
In old anime logic, she has pointy shoulder guards.
She does have pointy shoulder guards, which does mean she is evil.
And specifically, 2 shoulder guards. Because that's one thing I'm kind of noticing a little bit from this. Actually, now that I'm looking at some of this, I wonder if some of, like, Cloud Strife's attire or, like, some Final Fantasy was inspired. Because you always see those characters with the one shoulder pad.
With the one shoulder pad. I do
specifically
know...
from Mad Max's costume, not Tina Turner's.
Yes. I do know that some of the Final Fantasy, like, there are references from a few writers, directors, and artists who have worked on, like, not the newest ones, but, like, the middle to new ones of the Final Fantasy, saying that, like, of course, you know, Mad Max has penetrated their minds. And, like, yeah, maybe some of the costuming or hair could have been in there. But Mad Max, much like, you know, Seinfeld, has kind of perpetrated its way through. Seinfeld has managed to wiggle its fingers into everybody's in the 90s and 80s funny bone. Mad Max has done the same for everyone who is post-apocalyptic of some kind.
Okay, I'll get on that. I do want to mention that there are some bits at this part where like the camera work is just slightly out of focus and a little
yeah, it feels like maybe we were trying to go for a specific look, but I don't quite get it. Yeah,
and it's only small little bits, but just something that does, like, stand out a wee bit.
Yeah, I get it that, like, first off, my TV's way too nice to be watching this on. But at the same time, yeah, like, there are definitely scenes that, like, read much cleaner and nicer throughout this movie that makes these scenes that are kind of blurry stand out quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And so Mad Max has shown the town, and we're told of Auntie's rise to power, where it was nothing, she used to be nobody, and now she's leader of this town, or kind of leader.
Go Auntie.
And so now she gives Mad Max the deal to murder a man, because those who seek power always seek more.
Of course.
And we also set Max up to be a little bit less of a good guy than what we were expecting, especially from, like, Road Warrior to this.
Yes, which I kind of like, because, and, like, the first one really sets him up as, like, no, he's misunderstood, but he's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer the Mad Max of, like, no, he's in it for himself. He is here to survive. Fuck you and fuck all of the things that might stand in his way.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where that series goes, because even Road Warrior, he's being very benevolent, I'll say.
Yeah,
I don't
like,
think that's the right term, but...
Well, first off, they don't put him in a whole lot of situations in that movie where, like, he has to, like, theoretically choose good versus evil. He's just along for the ride.
Yeah.
This is where we, like, first really get choices given to Max, other than just, like, hey, don't die. And even then, the choice is, hey, murder or die.
Or
somehow figure a way around that.
Murder and you'll get your car back, basically.
Which, you know, would be helpful, because we don't want to walk through the desert.
And remember, food and water.
Food and water. A high commodity.
Yes. which this is the part where we're introduced to the pig shit methane farm of the underworld of Bartertown.
Okay, I love this because as architects who went to college for this nonsense, we had classes about green and future technologies, and I know that I had a professor who did think cow farts were the way of the future.
I did not have a professor like that at all.
I had a professor who he thought that underground living plus cow farts was going to save us. He didn't know how. He couldn't quite comprehend like how we would capture the fart. But he was obsessed with this concept of like, oh, there are these sources out there in the world to power our lives, to power our future. And this is the grossest but most realistic example of this, like, put into practice.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, it is nasty, but I love it. Because it's like, finally that professor feels like he's justified in his love of cow farts.
This movie made it so it was accurate. I mean...
Yeah, because like he would go off about how, like, well, you know, wind can only go for so long, sun might, like, has to be blah, blah, blah. Like, he found flaws with all of our current, like, green tech. And he's like, the one we've never really perfected is farts. And this movie...
I wonder why.
But this movie proves it can be done!
No, this movie explains absolutely nothing about how they even extract the methane, how it's done.
They're just like, yeah, our towns run on farts. Don't worry about it.
So, could we call this movie shit punk?
Yes.
Shit
you
punk.
really could. No, okay, this movie, with the exception of the cow poop, and you know, honestly, like, maybe there's room for the cow poop, this movie gives off Burning Man festival vibes real hard.
Yeah, they're in the rave wear, but it's not neon.
It's all desert punk. It's all... Everything is purposefully broken down just a little bit too much, and, like, why is one thing available but another isn't? Never explained.
It's like, I haven't seen the movie yet, but I know Waterworld.
Yes.
They talk about, like, how paper is, like, the most valuable commodity, yet they roll it up to smoke tobacco with.
Yes. Yeah. Where, like, the logic is never fully, like, explained to me, but that's okay.
We'll have to do Waterworld at some point.
We definitely will.
But I also liked in the featurette of the making of that watching other people have to deal with code.
Yes.
Because there were 400 pigs, which was originally against a lot of the health code.
You don't fucking say.
And they had to jump through a fuck ton of hoops. Like, it's funny watching them, like, in order to, like, even be on the set, all the cast and crew, or all the crew had to wear, like, hazmat suits and, like, had to be sprayed down before and after each shoot.
Yes.
Like,
I love that this movie, and just Mad Max in general, is so dedicated to trying to be as best it can practical effects, that instead of thinking to themselves, hey, what if we toned down how many real pigs there are in this? And, like, maybe replace it with some optical illusions or some CGI pigs. They went, no, we need the pigs. We need 400 pigs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is also the 80s, so, like, CGI is not really a thing that they try and do.
No, and, like, granted, like, there are ways around it. We've seen them. And, like, stylistically wise, could we have, like, squeezed it in there? Sure, but it wouldn't have been Mad Max if we had.
No.
And, like, stuff is practical effect done, but at, like, a purposefully low grade. Like, it is so easy to see how everything was created in this film, and that's kind of part of the joy and fun of it, is that, like, you know, like, what the bits of all the costumes are.
Yeah.
You can clearly tell when background props are being just pushed by normal people across the set. Like, there is a level of, like, almost play and old school style staging that goes with Mad Max in general, that, like, yes, it is impractical to have 400 pigs, but it would not have been Mad Max if there wasn't 400 pigs.
Yeah, I can see that.
Maybe 200 pigs, but, like, still.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think stuck with, like, all four Mad Maxes, honestly. Even in the new one, they
still
do a good job of, like, DIY feel.
Yes, and, like, yes, there's definitely a lot more fancy camera work, and like, we're not nearly as dangerous as the old ones are in the new one. Still dangerous. Not as dangerous. There's some questionable stunts done in even this movie. But even then, like, all of that feels dangerous but incredibly possible. Like, you could definitely just tie a guy to the pole and be like, alright, stunt done. We have accomplished the thing.
Yeah.
Should we have done it that way? No. But we did do it that way.
That's just the way that worked for us this time.
There's some redneck ingenuity to Mad Max that really is delightful.
Yeah, and I think that definitely is part of the charm of it. Because, like, even after this, like, we're introduced quickly to Master Blaster.
Master and Blaster.
Yes. A giant controlled by a little person, with Master is portrayed by Angelo Rosito, and Blaster is portrayed by Paul Larson.
Yep.
Which, yeah,
it's exactly what you're picturing in your head.
I sent that. Well, I posted on Sugi's Discord. I don't think Kark saw it. But I said, hey, Kark, this is our new Halloween costume. For those who don't know, Kark is... We've been giving him shit because he's not super tall, but he's not super short either. So.
I was going to say, it is difficult to be the height difference between these two.
No. Kark's like an inch shorter than me.
There is several feet worth of height difference between these two gentlemen.
Yes, very much so. When I do like when they're asked, like, how tough are they? He's given the response that they can beat most men with his breath alone.
That's nasty.
Yeah. And also, like, the well, how do I get in? How do I get close to them? You can shovel shit, can't you?
I mean, good answer.
Yeah. Which this part is so brief in the movie too, because into the shit we go.
Yeah, no, like, there is no pause or thinking about this. We just do.
Yeah, because immediately he's trying to get out.
Yes. And
we also find out that there's branded slave laborers.
There's always some dark element to a Mad Max film, which kind of is, like, on point for the whole dystopia thing.
Yeah, which the punishment is if you kill a pig, you now are a slave.
The pigs are running the city, in a way. They are keeping the city afloat. And there is, like, a wonderful, simplistic rule set that goes with Mad Max. And, like, they are briefly explained. And I kind of like that, like, we are blatantly told rules.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, some of these rules don't make any sense. But, like, I appreciate that there is some caveman-level rules that, like, we are told as the audience for each Mad Max film. And in this one, don't kill pigs, do not break a barter.
We'll find that out later.
Yes, but, like, that is nice that we are just blatantly told those things. Like, no one has to guess.
Yeah, you're told how this world works as you go along, instead of going down a whole grand mythos of, in the days of old, there was 7 rings crafted for...
I feel it in the water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, there is no questioning the lore of, like, what is driving the Mad Max film. And it changes each movie, to be honest.
Yeah, because they're all different movies. They're not... They feel very much in line with the Zatoichi franchise, I'll say.
Yeah, where like, it is the same character, but, like, they don't necessarily have anything to do with each other.
Yeah, well...
But they kind of sometimes do.
Yeah, I would say the only ones that tie into each other are the first 2 Zatoichi movies, and then every single one after that's kind of a standalone. Even the Beat Takashi remake one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But also going back to your topic of just DIY style, I noticed that a lot of the shackles are just random bits of metal or, like, gears.
Yes, they're just handed to people. They're like, here, put this on.
Pretty much.
I love it.
But Mad Max shows his ability at disarming his own car that Master Blaster has purchased.
I do appreciate that, and it is a point of favoritism in the Mad Max, like, fandom, that as the show goes on, the vehicles both get more interesting, and there are more of them. Yeah,
and that's the other thing too, like, in my mind, I can't translate this car to, like, the caravan he was in being pulled by camels.
Yes, which I think in the, like, written bits that I could find, I think it's called Camel Car. But yeah, like, And it's strange because, like, there's a plane in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's like a fully functioning plane.
Well, and from my understanding of the lore a little bit, and I did read a little, but not a whole lot. Also at this part, the government's like trying to corner the oil market or something.
Sure, why not? But
So,
there's like no oceans still. Like they talk about how like there's this myth of the ocean, but it is firmly set in Australia.
That myth of the ocean just makes me think of Attack on Titan.
Oh, me too, which is, again, like, it's a good, like, oh, we are an isolated little island in this vast desert, and somewhere out there is the ocean, but, like, you're on, like, you're surrounded by ocean, theoretically. You could just walk to it.
Yeah.
But they don't, and they can't. But they could, but they can't.
Yeah.
Like, it's a wonderful, like, people have just accepted this new way of life.
Yeah, and even the way, like, Master Blaster talks is...
hilarious.
It feels so much like Cloud Atlas, where it's like, we talk the true.
Yes. Where you're like, no, like, and he's like one of the only people who talks like this.
Yeah.
There's no reason, but like, I don't hate it. It doesn't feel wrong.
No, and like, honestly, like, after this, like, because Max questions, like, his superiority, like, his embargo is a little Napoleon-esque of, like...
yes, it's hilarious.
It just, like... Honestly, you're starting to understand why Auntie wants to kill him.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because at this point in the movie, fuck this guy. But his display of power to Max is a bit over the top. Instead of, like, just Master or Blaster, like, holding him up and, like, I'm very strong, it's like, oh, look at me. I can turn off power to the entire city.
But it also, at the same time... yes, it is over the top, but it very, like, quickly and, like, smartly communicates to the audience that, like, while Auntie might run the show, this man literally has a power switch to the city.
Yeah.
That does make him very powerful. I can see why she wants him dead, not just because he's an asshat, but because if he gets pissed off and he just turns off the pig farts, nobody has anything.
I should have looked up when solar power was invented. I know it's older, but...
not as old as pig farts, apparently.
I guess. But we do find out that Blaster does have a weakness. It's high-pitched noises.
Oh, no!
It's the whole point of being there. And, yeah, it's just...
yeah.
It's a moment in the movie.
It's in there.
Because Max goes up, and now he decides to make the deal with Auntie. And it's time for Thunderdome, where we learn that...
the best part of this movie!
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves!
Which, this nightly party, it sounds like it's happens every day, because it's like, he's king, so of course he's gonna strut around.
Yeah, it does feel like it, doesn't it?
Well, and it never even shows that Max disarms the bomb, he's just now riding around the car.
Yes. Yeah, you know, highly explosive car.
Yeah.
That's fine, don't worry about it.
Max gets out of there real quickly, too.
Yeah, this is true.
But he's basically, his goal is to pick a fight with Master Blaster. And it is Thunderdome.
It is Thunderdome time.
Which, Auntie above feels very dope. Like,
yes.
in a menacing dictatorial, like, manner.
100%.
Like, this is the first time, like, she feels truly evil.
Yes. Where she doesn't just feel like I need you to get this guy for me because, you know, he's a problem.
Yeah.
She now feels like a proper boss.
Oh, and yeah, this is also the part where we're told that not just 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. It's like, if there's ever a disagreement on anything...
We handle it in the Thunderdome.
Which is... kind of the stupidest way to handle any argument.
But these are playground rules.
Yeah.
And, like, while the world of Mad Max doesn't make a ton of sense, it makes, like, this caveman brain level sense, where you're like, yeah, you know what? The world has fallen apart, my town's being run by pig farts and 2 men in a suit. You know what? Let's do this. Let's fight to the death.
why not? You don't have much to live for anyways.
No, and like this is highly entertaining and also 100% what my child brain thought when we went to the playground and there was that like half dome that you got to play under. That's what this was.
See, I didn't have that point of reference when I was a kid, but when I grew older, I knew what Thunderdome was, like to the point where like I knew exactly where they were going in Rick and Morty.
Yes.
When they showed it, it's like I know of this.
So there is a lot of people who think that this movie really helped coin the, like, phrase Thunderdome. And also, like, its meaning of, like, 2 men enter, 1 man leave sort of dictatorship. To the point of, like, making sure that WWE, like, helped play along into this sort of thing. Because, of course, they had the whole, like, it's WWE, especially in the 80s. Like, not new, not surprising. But a lot of people, like, tie this movie specifically back to not just WWE, but other movies and books, being like, until Mad Max Thunderdome, we had like a broader definition, and now you say Thunderdome, you know we've defined it. You
think of Mad Max.
Exactly.
Okay. But I also do like this bit too because the audience is hanging onto the cage. The music style is very circus-like. The women holding pole arms like they're round cards.
Hilarious.
Also, the announcer.
Yes.
He has the talking heads like suit shoulders.
Uh-huh.
But also he's wearing a Grand Mason pendant.
Yes.
Like, this movie is just all over the place with, like, it felt like they went to a thrift store and grabbed whatever they could.
They just rolled around. And not just, like, a good thrift store. They went to, like, one in the middle of nowhere, like, Kansas, and they're like, go. Pick up something.
Yes.
Put it on you.
I will also say, very impressive lighting for the cage if they're just using the fire that we see in it.
It does appear very impressive. Other thing that's impressive is apparently, Mel Brooks was only given... Mel Gibson, yes. Mel Gibson was only given 2 days to practice the stunts for this, and he did them all himself.
You know?
Which, that's dope, dude.
I thought he did say that there was a couple stand-ins for him here and there.
There definitely had to be, because in a few of the interviews, just about everyone who participated in the Thunderdome section admitted to a great deal of bruising. Both from the actors and also the people in the background. And
that it was very sketchy doing it, too.
Yeah, because there's supposed to be bungee cords holding the 2 main contestants, right? And they're supposed to bungee through the dome, Spider-Man style, to beat each other up with different weapons.
I've got you for 5 minutes. You're going nowhere.
Exactly. Exactly. However... in real life, the bungee cords were not strong enough to lift either of them off the ground for any of the big jumps.
Obviously.
They were apparently strong enough to, like, cushion the landing, but, like, they were just not strong enough to, like, fling them across the dome like we see in the movie. But, in true Mad Max style, did we edit any of this? Or change up? No. They put hydraulics under them and was like, yeet!
It's such an awkward fight, too, because, like...
so awkward.
Well, before I get into it, I do like that they call him the man with no name, possibly a nod to the Dollar Trilogy.
I think it is, because like he portrays a lot of the same qualities.
Like I said, this movie's kind of westernish.
It is adjacent,
but they also like just go on like there's no rules. Like once you win, the only rule is 2 men enter, 1 man leave. So
which is my sort of fight. Let's go.
Yeah, but yeah, it's such a dumb.
Like, there's so many ways to smart your way out of this and, like, be better than this, and yet the movie, in true, like, playground rules style, is just like, no. You're here to see 2 men in bungee cords beat the shit out of each other, and I will deliver.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is, like, the bungee cords make no sense why they're there to begin with.
They make no sense, especially because we've already proven that Blaster is incredibly strong and can just pick up full-grown men and throw them places.
Yeah.
He carries another man, granted a small man, but he carries him around all day, every day.
Yeah.
And that sounds tiring. Hell no. So
I mean...
do we really need the bungee cords to make this an epic fight?
No.
We don't, but I like them.
No, because, I mean, we even have chainsaws in this fight,
too.
Oh,
yeah, no. there's just, like, no rules to the point of, like, what weapon do you want? Whatever the audience has handed me.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also little spikes on the inside, so if you get flung up a little too high, there are spikes.
Even the arena will kill you.
Yeah, and they kill one of the bystanders.
For no reason.
Well, they throw one of the pole arms at him, or throws the pole arms at Max, and he moves out of the way and hits him.
Which is, like, talk about splash zone. Like, I don't know if I want to be standing this close to the cage. Mm-hmm. Especially with bungee cords attached to these guys.
Yeah. I mean, this is the part where I, like, because granted, this was the third Mad Max movie I'd seen.
Yes.
I'm like, just kind of sitting there, I'm like, this is really a silly movie and not exactly what I was thinking at all.
Yes, this is a silly movie and I love it.
But we find out the whole purpose of the whistle and Max being down there or in the ship farm was so that we could blow the whistle and cripple Blaster. And he almost takes him out, but it turns out that Blaster is just a man with special needs.
Yeah, which I appreciate an 80s movie having some sympathy and, like, attempt at compassion. Yeah. However, the world of Mad Max is full of radiation.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people have a learning disability by this point.
Well, and
this man was definitely trying to kill him just a second ago.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, like, Master seems like he's trying to be nice, and he's like, don't harm him, he's not right in the head.
He's just a child in his mind.
Yeah, and it's like...
Then why did you send him into battle?
Yeah, well, because rules of the town they have to follow. But...
Yes, but also 110% that Master has picked fights with, like, a lot of people.
Yeah.
And just put Blaster in there.
Master is using a mentally challenged man as a mount.
Yes, as a horse.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah, and then is upset when he might get hurt.
Yeah. And then, fuck Auntie for actually killing Blaster.
I understand why she did it, though. Yeah. Because if she hadn't, Master would go right back to being the asshat he always was.
Well, and also there's a civil riot on her hands, potentially, where everyone's like, 2 men enter, 1 man leave.
That is the rule.
Yeah.
And she is the rule giver.
Yeah, and this is where we find out about bust the deal and face the wheel.
I freaking love this concept.
They do such a great job with, like, the branding of this movie, though.
Yes, this is so wild. And when you hear face the wheel, my medieval torture-loving ass thinks of so many variations this could be. None of those are correct.
No.
Not a one of those things that I thought up of, like, oh, they're gonna stretch him, they're gonna spike him, they're gonna have him run over, they're gonna cook him alive, they're gonna have him run till he dies. No. All of those are wrong. They're gonna Wheel of Fortune style spin a wheel.
Wheel of Misfortune.
Wheel of Misfortune. And the props department made this wheel, and each little section is filled out with beautiful ideas that they had to come up with, because they only really needed, like, one.
Yeah, well, and on top of that, like, a third of the wheel is, like, Auntie's choice.
Yes.
Which, I mean, there are so many cheesy lines, and, like, honestly, like...
There's, like, one of them is just, like, instant death.
Yeah.
You just die immediately.
And there's one, spin again. Like...
But, like, and I love how none of the options are, like, actually good, but there is clearly better and worse options.
Yeah.
Like, one of them is, like, hard labor. Or something like that. Like, and then there's impaled. Or something like that. Where you're like, oh, so I could have to shovel pig shit. Or you're gonna just burn me alive. Great. Yeah. I love these options.
For breaking a simple deal.
Yes. Yeah. You know, this town is serious.
And whoever crafted this wheel did a good job.
Yeah, it spins beautifully.
Yeah. But, what punishment does Max get?
He gets sent out of town.
Specifically it says, to the gulag.
To the gulag, which my dyslexic ass could never quite figure out what that word was. So...
It means he gets put backwards on a horse with a mascot head on, and they smack the horse off into the desert.
A great punishment.
Which from there we go to that things aren't going so great for Bartertown.
No, you know.
They're kind of teasing Master, or they're threatening him with being eaten by pigs unless they turns back on power and teaches them how to run everything. Or he teaches them how to run everything.
I do think they need to know how to run their own town.
Yeah.
This does bring up a good question about what the pigs have been eating this whole time. They're living in a desert.
True.
And while the people can eat the piggies, that makes sense, no problems there.
No, eating piggies is a crime.
But yes, eating piggies is a crime. There is a lot of piggies. And I know from experience that piggies eat a lot of food. They are large.
Yes,
these are not little piggies.
But pigs pound for what they eat. They'll eat anything pretty much too.
Oh,
but
no,
like,
yeah.
But pound for like what they consume. They're your most profitable type of animal.
They are, but part of that calculation goes into how fast you can get them to market.
Yeah. We
are not marketing these creatures because, again, it is illegal to eat the piggies. These are long-living, massive pot-belly piggies who need to fart a lot to keep the town going. What are the piggies eating? There's not a lot of children in this town.
Soylent Greens is people!
Yes, that's my theory, is that they're just feeding the children to the piggies.
Children are people who break the rules.
Yeah, like Master. And probably Blaster, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now that he's dead.
Yeah, the dead and the dying.
To the piggies they go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds just like a better punishment for the criminals in general.
I think I'd like to be skewered before the piggies eat me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this moment, the pig killer sends a monkey off with water for Max.
It's apparently Max's pet monkey. I don't care. I don't like monkeys. I'm gonna forget the monkey exists, not gonna lie. Also, Pig Killer's name is Pig Killer.
Shocking.
He has a name in, like, one of the scripts that I was reading, but, like, I think he's credited as Pig Killer.
Well, let's look it up real quick.
Yeah, Robert Grubb plays Pig Killer.
Beautiful. I mean, he doesn't need another name.
It's descriptive.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a nothing moment, because the monkey goes off to do its thing, and we cut to Max in the desert where his horse stops to rest / die?
His horse is dead.
Which, so much of this part is washed out. If I remember right, this is the movie where Miller saw a black and white print and thought it'd be cool to do a Mad Max in black and white.
Yeah, and he hadn't quite perfected the technique yet.
Yeah. But Max is saved by some wanderer, which...
We have now officially started second part of this movie. This movie is fiercely broken into 3 parts.
I wouldn't even say that. I'd say it's broken into 2.
It is definitely 2. I kind of have a third part for the ending part where we all return, but, like, definitely 2 parts. Almost 2 different movies that just happen to share the same screen time.
Yeah, because Max wakes up where he's supposed to be the savior for a group of children.
Captain Walker!
Yeah, this movie, and the music takes such a turn, because it's such a weird-ass scene of him waking up and then, like, immediately, like, almost falling to his death because the kids thought he could fly?
Yeah, these children are real dumb.
Yeah.
Real dumb.
Yeah, because they're, well, also they've been unsocialized, because they're talking about, like, oh yeah, we heard it through the X-ray or the sonic, I think they go back and forth between calling it.
Yes.
And honestly, like, they come out of absolutely nowhere at this part of the movie.
Yes, literally left field, children just evolve out of the sink pit.
Yeah. Which, I don't know,
They are the descendants of a plane crash survivor and have been, or maybe they are just the children of the plane crash survivors. It's not super clear, like, how many generations have been living there.
Or they were the only passengers on the plane?
No, there was definitely adults on the plane.
Okay.
There is some lore in the movie itself for this plane scene. It is just really fucking hard to pull it out of these children's teeth to understand what is actually happening and what is just garbage.
Yeah, because this movie goes from being shit punk to a post Pock-eclipse
yes
hook. basically.
Yeah, no, these are very Neverland children, like
Yeah.
Lost Boys sort of feel.
Yeah, and but
they're like maybe the second or third generation of just children.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in just a bit because they make a reference to that these kids are screwing and having other children.
No, it's not even a reference. It is blatantly stated. Like, one of them is named the pregnant one.
Oh, in the credits. But in the movie itself, like, she's like, they say her name and she's like, oh, she's about to pop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, these kids are
yes, but when you get old enough, you just are sent out into the desert? Question mark?
I don't know. Because that's the thing, too, is like, they try explaining the lore through the television screen, and it's rough, but it works.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's just be dumb forever. Because, I mean, it's kids piecing bullshit together.
And they apparently are passing down most of their information orally. So, like, yeah, I can see how it gets messed up. Like, logically, I see how we got here from a writer's standpoint. It's just real jarring to go from Tina Turner and, death pads to children. Yeah,
because and on top of that, like we brought up, like, how long have they been there? They said that they've been there since the Pock-eclipse, which
no, it is well implied that, like, the plane crashed during the original Pock-eclipse.
Yeah,
which was, I mean, not that long ago, because Mad Max was a police officer before the apocalypse. So, like, but also, like, there's generations worth of children now.
I mean,
either this is very quick children making.
Theoretically, if we want to get medieval on it.
We could. I don't like it, but we could.
12, 13 years, so if you double that, let's put it up to 15 to be a little bit more...
Yeah, better, but not great.
Not great. I mean, they're kids, so, like...
It's still not great.
That's 30 years you could turn around 2 generations?
Yeah, Max isn't that old.
No.
And he was a police officer with a family before the apocalypse, so, like, minimum in the 20s. It's not like it's not like he's like the only teenage police officer.
This is like the second generation of kids in this place.
I'll go with second gen.
Okay. And honestly, like, the kids are all dressed so stupid. One of them has a dead bird on his head, like...
You know what? The Victorians did it. Why not?
They also did a bunch of other dumb shit, and...
You know what? The Victorians and these children are very similar.
Yeah. Which they set up Max to be like this post-Pock-eclipse Jesus.
I will say that, like, the lore that they try and put out here, like, works. Because, like, they have, like, an image of the original pilot or captain of the plane.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Max looks enough like that guy.
Like the cave drawing that they put together.
Yeah. And, like, this is probably the only adult they've ever seen that they didn't send off from their own group. So, like, yeah, I like, logically can put it together. I just don't really understand why the children are here.
Well, because on top of that, too, like, this movie gets even more confusing because Max tries to set them straight that he isn't Walker, but then he throws his hat and somehow it flies off like a miracle?
That, like, or the children don't understand wind.
Yeah, and, I mean, I also do like that, I caught on to this, but Tibbets in the interview compared Mad Max to, like, a reluctant messiah. Yeah,
he does not want to be helping, but he gets to be helping.
Yeah.
But also, like, just the act of him leaving is helping. Like, no, I'm not your messiah, but I am going back to civilization.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Because they immediately after that, they all just run off and take him to the plane crash. Like, this whole thing is an absolute mess put together.
It is. And, like, I do think that there was probably a way to, like, piece this together a little bit better to make this feel like a cohesive world. Because, like, the apocalyptic part of this whole story makes sense. These kids make sense in the grand scheme of a Mad Max world. It's just very, like, part A is over, part B of story started. And I don't really see, other than just Mad Max being there, like, why they're tied together. Why these two story plots together.
I'll get into some of that a little bit at the end. Because I do have some explanation for it, but I want to save it.
Okay.
Because immediately after this, like, a group of kids decide to leave. Like, not even with Max guiding them, but just, like...
They've decided that he claims he's not... I do know this part. Because, again, you have to piece all of this stuff together because the children's talk is terrible.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of dialogue where you can piece together that the kids who believe Max when he says he is not Walker have decided that since he is not Walker, their only hope of salvation is gone. They no longer believe in Walker, and they're gonna go find Tomorrow Neverland by themselves. Or Tomorrow Morrowland by themselves.
That's right, they do call it Tomorrow Morrowland.
Morrowland.
Yeah. But, I mean, honestly, like, all the dialogue in this part is just...
Yeah, and, like, I do think that's a huge part of the problem with this scene, because, like I said, like, if you break apart all the kids and you can find, or if you're like me and have auditory processing problems, like, read through all of the dialogue for this, there is, like, it does all piece together nicely. You can figure out who's who, and, like, the kids have, like, weird names to go along with the rest of the Mad Max world, which works great. They all have, like, roles and, like, lore that goes with them. But these are children actors who are doing their best.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's 80s kid acting. It's not great.
But it's just the writing's not great is the big thing.
No, and, like, the kids trying to pull off this dialogue is really difficult. I think a better example of, like, weird kid dialogue would be, like, The Dark Crystal, where, like...
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of lore being, like, explained to you, like, kind of constantly throughout that movie. And a lot of the characters speak in, like, this weird, kiddish sort of, like, tribal sort of speak, where it's not proper English, but it's also not so garbled that I can't understand what anything is, because you call something 8 different names.
Yeah, it's not like Primal SpongeBob.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which even that...
Or Doodle Bob.
Doodle Bob. Yeah. Even Doodle Bob at least made more sense. But yeah, like, that's, I think, a huge part of the problem with the kids is, like, the dialogue plus the kids trying to act on this really difficult dialogue is... Yeah. It makes it really difficult to understand what's going on.
It would have worked better if, like, they had been adult. So that had been there the whole time instead of...
Yeah, or even just, like, take out the, like, caveman styling for the kids' dialogue and just let them talk like normal kids. Like, have them talk on top of each other, have them be overly excited, and that's where the communication problems come from. That'd be easier to follow, because we're at least, for the most part of society, used to this, like, kids being too excited and having a hard time explaining versus, like, we are the wise ones. You're 8. Shut up. You're not wise at all. You can barely make mac and cheese.
Yeah. But, and I mean, on top of that, like, I honestly think Max is right trying to keep them safe from not going out.
Oh, yeah, no. I do appreciate that while there are some differences between the Maxes of, like, even the ones portrayed by the same actor, like, you could argue that, like, there is enough difference between each Mad Max movie that Max is almost a different character. I do like that this is one of the consistencies with the Max character, is, like, sometimes he's a good guy, sometimes he's like, chaotic neutral, but he's always here to tell you how it is. And he looks these kids in the eyes and is like, look, it's shit out there.
Yeah.
Stay here, you at least have water.
Well, he also punches her like Kirk punches the alien babe in Star Trek Season 3.
Yeah. This is true.
But
like, he's not nice, but he's also not gonna lie to them and be like, yeah, there's, you know, candy out there.
Well, and it doesn't do anything, because in the morning, that group of children has already left, and
they don't care.
Yeah, I mean...
yeah.
This is the part where they bring up that one of them is going to pop, so it's like,
it's a little awkward. Yeah. I would like to leave now.
Yeah, well, and on top of this is why I think this is, like, the 3rd generation of kids, because, like, they've already experienced childbirth. Like,
yes. Like, they're uncomfortably comfortable with this.
Yeah. It's at least for our modern, or not, maybe not even modern, just our
non-post-apocalyptic minds.
Sensibilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we never find a world where this is the norm. But,
no.
But Max is right. Where they are at, while weird and disgusting, is better than Pigfart Town. Yeah, which
Max is still a good guy. He's like, all right, let me go, but you got to give me all your water containers.
I do like that he is not the worst, but he's still an ass.
Yeah, he's like, one of you guys has to come with me. And, like, on top of that, like, the dumbass kid follows them, and he's like, he holds his own. But then he's immediately carrying him the next scene.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It again, I think a huge part of the problem is it's weird dialogue plus kid actor equals really hard to follow.
And weird pacing too, because like we're barely tracking after them and they immediately catch up to them, and one of the kids is being swallowed by the sand as Max comes to the rescue.
I kind of wish the kid just fell into the sand.
Yeah, which immediately right after this, they find Bartertown right again because one of the kids has gone ahead to Bartertown.
These children are desert proof. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Because, like, wasn't this, like, same trek on a horse last time almost the death of Max?
Yeah.
And, like, granted, yes, we have now carried water, but, like, they kind of made it seem like this was, like, an impossible journey.
They've also been traveling at night for the most part, too.
Yeah, still, you gotta sleep through the burning sunshine during the day.
Yeah.
Like, they made the way there seem like, oh, no one has ever found this magical place. And now it's like a half day's walk?
Yeah. No, exactly. Because, like, the kids are all ready to go ahead and, like, they're just, like, why? Because it's, like, what was it? There's some dialogue in here that's really bad, too. Because, like, the kid's just asking a bunch of questions. And he doesn't tell them to shut up, which is fine. But, like, they say this stuff of, like, is this jerking time? And it's like, what are we even talking about at this point?
What are we even talking about? And this is where, like, some of this dialogue I don't think works, but part of the reason why I don't think it works is because Mel Gibson's version of Max is very, like, normal person.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when we get to the newest version of Max, he's almost feral.
Yeah.
Like, he barely talks.
They put a grill on his face to muzzle him.
Yes, it's the equivalent of having, like, a very rabid bobcat as a pet. You just kind of hope he doesn't kill you.
Yes.
And I think that version of Max, like, you can see where the writer and the directors are starting to get to that Max in this film, like, especially in this part. Because that Max would make sense for these kids.
Oh, no, I wouldn't even say that for this part. I'd say, like, that was the Mad Max when he was in the Thunderdome or Road Warrior, but like, this half of the movie, not at all.
No, he's not there yet, but you could see where that Max would make more sense with these asshole children. Because then because they are a civilized version of feral, and he is a not civilized feral. And, like, that dynamic could have worked much better than this kind of normal person Max that Gibson plays.
I have a theory, and I have no lore to base this off of.
That's okay, that's most of this movie.
These children become the leaders of Mad Max Fury Road.
That'd be hilarious.
I know it's not true, but
it is unfortunately not true because we do know what happens to these kids, but, like,
kind of.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, because, I mean, this whole part of them in Bartertown is, or in the pig factory, because let's face it, we're not in Bartertown, we're in the pig factory.
We are in the pig factory.
Where they just go on ahead, they rescue Master, and
they kind of, like, accidentally release Pig Killer.
Yeah, or he comes to the rescue and saves them, and then, like, they're saved by some stupid music in the feed slide, and the pigs get in the way of them being caught again. It's just...
Why not? You know, I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah, which, now it's time to take the car and crash out of Bartertown, which Auntie starts... And by the way, this movie cuts at a breakneck speed at the end of it.
Oh, boy, does it ever.
Because Auntie starts a hunting party as the kiddos and Max leave. The kids know absolutely nothing, which...
They really don't.
I do wonder, because there's a part coming up where, like, the dad's learning a French lesson, and the dialogue he says kind of sounds like the same thing they're saying in Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, maybe.
I wonder. But, yeah, it's... They're caught and a fight ensues. Also, Fury Road makes much more sense after seeing this in Road Warrior.
Yeah.
But they get held up by the kid from the first scene, and who pieces out of there real quick when he sees Auntie behind them. I love his screaming, "We're dead."
Yep.
Willing to leave his dad, even though he's telling his dad we're dead.
Yes.
Which Max finally finds the dude from the plane, because they follow the kid through a tunnel that's hidden behind the bumper of a beetle.
Secret passage.
Secret tunnel.
Behind the beetle.
Yes. Which, they all hop on the plane and they're bitching about it being overloaded because, of course, you got 6 kids, 3 adults on a 2-person skipper, if that.
Yeah, it's really not meant to hold this many people.
Yeah, no way to escape on a runway. Don't get me wrong, the action of this part is really cool.
Yeah, no, it looks great. It just doesn't logically make a ton of sense.
Yeah, because, like, they were trying to escape and there's no runway, and Max is like, I'll make sure there is, stops Auntie on the way, and then saves the day as the kiddos, pig killer, all fly away.
I appreciate that they know how to fly because of Junior.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, Dad's there too.
Yeah, for now.
And Auntie just walks up, laughs at him, and lets him live?
You know,
what's the fucking point?
There is none. There is...
Like,
there is none. There's no point.
It's not even like a good story, like, at this point, like Wes Anderson or the Coen brothers, where it's just a good story. This movie's gone to absolute shit.
Yes, chaos has ensued, and there is no reason. There is no logic.
Yeah, because the kids immediately fly into a sandstorm into the city, where we cut to the end where the kids are still teaching the children of the new beacon, the new post Pock-eclipse Jesus, that is Max.
Yes.
And also, fuck all the other children that were left in the desert?
Yes, fuck those children. They made it to Tomorrow which is probably Sydney.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sort of implied in the background because there's other fires you can see in the buildings that, like, this is
new civilization.
Yeah.
But they never explain it. All we know is this group of children landed there. It never says that they went back.
No, they don't.
For that other group of kids.
Which, I mean, is on point for all these other children, these other generations of children who have apparently left them. And, like, surely not all of them went in the same direction into the desert and missed the closest town that's just right over there screaming 2 men enter, 1 man leave into the desert.
Yeah.
Like, surely not every single one who has left the town of children missed Bartertown entirely and then didn't go back to be like, hey, it's not great, but I did find others.
I don't believe that. I still don't believe that at all.
It seems so impossible. Like, so impossible.
No. And here's the reason why the last half of this movie is so bad.
Yes. Tell me.
It's because a lot of the movie was cut from Auntie Entity and the children in the desert.
That would make so much more sense. That would answer, I'm sure, like most of my questions.
It was cut for pacing and time issues.
I feel like it made pacing and timing issues.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it did. It just, there's so much bullshit. Like, for the movie to be heavily focused on Thunderdome is such a small piece of the movie. It just has a cool title because it's not Beyond Bartertown.
Or Pig Farts.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I very much would like to know all of the stuff that was cut out of this movie.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, Wild Mad Max never makes sense in its entirety. Like, there is always going to be questions, there's always going to be bits that just logically don't work. I do think that having those cut out bits would probably at least tie these two pieces together.
Yeah, well, and I mean, honestly, like, it still just baffles me, because the movie did well. I mean, I think if I remember right, it was like,
okay.
No, if I remember right, it was like, it made more money than its 2 previous movies.
Yes, but it also spent a lot of money.
Yeah, but it was also positively received by critics, but
which is confusing to me. Like, what critic watched this and was like, yeah, this is alright?
Yeah, it just...
These same critics will look at any other movie and be like, no, garbage. And they looked at Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome and was like, yeah, that's fine. No, yeah. You didn't. You liars.
I don't...
I totally believe the scores on, like, Rotten Tomatoes and stuff from the fans, because fans of Mad Max, like, we love this movie because it is stupid. Because the pacing is bad. Because it's practically like watching 2 Mad Max films tied into one. With, like, a small intermission in between.
Well, and I mean, that's the issue with this movie, too, is that, like, Miller said that the overall plot of the movie led to the toning down of the violence just due to the nature of the movie and having children involved.
Sure.
But, like, it just... I don't
love it, though. I feel like we could have, added more violence.
And here's the thing why I think it kind of pisses me off more is Miller said the children were the point of the movie to have hope for them. It just makes me think of that stupid-ass song that children are the hope of the future. That whole stupid theme. Like, granted, that's a big theme of anime because of kind of post-apocalyptic
I was going to say, it is a popular theming for post-apocalyptic movies in general. I just don't think this does a great job of going about it.
No. And
on top of that, I think one of the things that people like about Mad Max, and like those of us who are fans blatantly fucking ignore because of this movie, is that there is no hope for the future in Mad Max.
No.
And it's not even like we're making the best of what we can. No, everyone is out for themselves, fuck each other. It is survival of the craziest.
Well, yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I'm glad it stopped here just because I don't know where the hell they would have gone in the 80s. Because Gibson said that he agreed to do the movie because Miller got him drunk on the idea, and he might have had a little bit to drink then too.
This movie with drink does help.
But Gibson said he would also have been down for a Mad Max 4 if the story was interesting enough. But like, honestly, like,
this movie had, but I think Mad Max had outgrown the 80s.
Yeah.
At this point, we had finished all of the themes that were left for an apocalyptic film in the 80s. Like, we had out-haired everyone at this point. The costumes had finally reached that level of crazy that the first two films hadn't quite touched yet. The themes had we had finally reached, like, the start of real crazy themes that we will finally get to explore in the fourth one. Like, we had touched on everything that they could do in the 80s.
But, like, not even, like, really touch it. Like, by touching, it's like you gave it a glance and then you moved on to something else. And that's the thing. Like, I honestly wish most of this movie had been just Bartertown. Like,
Bartertown is so much more interesting.
Like, or if it had been the kids, but somehow you got to get out to the kids, blah, blah, blah. I think the kids were the worst part of this whole ordeal.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think for those of us who like this film, a lot of us tend to forget the children are there.
Yeah, because everyone forgets, like, once Mad Max sent off, well, that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, and honestly, like, for me, that's kind of where I usually stop watching.
Until they get hunted by Auntie, because that part is actually pretty cool.
That part is cool. And, like, you can see where the car chase scene, like, will lead into later on in, like, the future. Like, you can see how, like, they're going to build, especially now that we've, like, already gotten to see, like, where the franchise is kind of going. But yeah, like, we had reached a point where, like, styling plus actors plus writing didn't line up, unfortunately.
No, not at all. And I don't know, like, as much as everyone's talked about this, because
there's a reason why this is thought of as the weakest link.
Well,
and that's even with the first one.
I would rather watch this one than the first Mad Max. I will say that. My ordering for these, at least of the original, I'm not including Mad Max Fury Road because that's a completely different animal right now.
It is.
Of the original trilogy, Road Warriors top, Thunderdome second, original Mad Max is third. I cannot stand the original Mad Max. It's just so boring.
It is boring.
Yeah.
It is.
And that actually, no, that's a good point, because that's where this movie gets to a little bit too, is like, the part with the kids is actually very boring.
It is,
like,
which is disappointing, because there is cool lore in there. It's just presented in a boring way.
Yeah. It might have been more interesting if Mad Max was more of like...
There's no danger with the kids. Like,
no.
That's part of the fun with Mad Max, is like, there is always something happening, minus the first one, which, we'll exclude the first one for now. But there's always some, like, threat of danger. There's always, like, even the quote-unquote friends you make along the way could turn around and stab you if it so suits them. And that's just part of the, like, adventure of this universe that they've created. Except for in Children Land. Like, there's no danger in Children Land.
Hook's a better movie. Hook is more scary, because kids actually die in Hook.
I was gonna say, Hook is actually a good movie. How dare you, like, reference it as a bad movie?
Because it's basically the same thing. Is like,
but it's done well.
Yeah.
And, like, the kid nonsense and kid lore is presented better. Yes, I think there could have been a lot of notes taken from Hook as far as how to write and portray children in a, honestly, kind of dystopian setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The kids are eating imaginary food in Hook. That's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks delicious, but it is not real.
I did always want to eat that food as a kid.
Oh, 100% me too. But then I remembered I had real bread at home.
Yeah.
And I was a sucker for a bread sandwich as a child.
What the fuck's a bread sandwich?
It's where you take a piece of bread and you squish it real good and you put it between two other pieces of bread and you eat it.
What the fuck, Midwest bullshit? This sounds
No, this
like
isn't Midwest
this
bullshit.
sounds like Mad Max food. I've heard of toast sandwiches, but not bread sandwiches.
This isn't like a Midwest creation. This is me and my brother not being good cooking as children. And like, his idea was fancy was bringing me a slice of cheese on a plate that he unwrapped for me. And I made bread sandwich.
You raccoon people.
My brother and I were in fact raccoon people. This has nothing to do with the rest of my family. The rest of my family can cook just fine.
Okay.
I can now cook just fine, but it started with bread sandwich.
Bread sandwich fits Mad Max. I'm gonna move on from...
That's fair. Now you understand why I feel a connection to this movie.
Jesus. You were the kids!
No. I was not civilized enough to be with them.
They're not civilized!
I would have been in the desert immediately. I would have been in pig fart land. I would have been dead, let's be honest with ourselves.
We all would have been.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what do you rate Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome?
I love this movie with my whole heart, but it is bad weird.
I absolutely agree with that. There is just...
I love it for the weird. If I am to pick a Mad Max film as like the pinnacle, this is clearly not it.
No.
But I love it because there's Tina Turner in it. I love it because none of it makes any sense. I love it because the like mechanics don't work. That's why I love it, but it is bad. But I love a bad weird film.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the thing is, I like Bartertown. I like everything up until the kids.
Sure. I can
And
totally follow
if that was just the movie, or if it was just Mad Max being thrown in prison trying to get out, that would have been more interesting than what the second half of this movie was.
Yes, 100%.
And that's where it loses me and why it falls into the bad. And why it becomes weird is because, like we said, it feels like it was two separate movies that they just smushed together and said, now kiss.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just...
They are two separate movies that could have been done at two different times.
Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just disappointed in how much you hyped up the movie for years.
And I will continue to hype up this movie because there are scenes from this movie that are worth watching.
Yeah.
Thunderdome.
The fight of Thunderdome is worth watching.
The like airplane taking off car chase scene is worth watching. Honestly, the music for this is worth listening to. The music was fantastic. I think it was written by Maurice Jarre, and Tina Turner sings two of the songs for it, and like, it's dope. It sounds real good.
Yeah.
Visually, this film looks great, as minus the blurry spots. But like, costuming wise, looks great. Like, hair and makeup wise, looks out of this world fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Half the people have bad mohawks. Mwah! I love it. It just, writing-wise, doesn't work.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, too, because you mentioned that this movie helped shape the post-apocalypse scene.
It did, and, like, honestly, Mad Max as a whole did that.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Max helped not only shape, like, it came out at the right time, you know?
Yeah.
It started in the early 80s, managed to make its way all the way through mid-80s, which, you know, left a pretty hard impression on the 90s. And then the fourth one came out much later, but still managed to hold real tight onto those ideas. But I think a lot of what people remember is the first half of this movie. But it sticks with you. Like, Thunderdome, the fighting of Thunderdome will stick with you. The costumes of Bartertown and, like, the general look of it sticks with you. and then you just immediately forget the children.
Yeet.
Whoops.
Fuck them kids.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't get over how like, at least the one thing I will give Mad Max 1, at least it's had a cohesive story. Mad Max 2, it was a good story.
But it wasn't as apocalyptic as it hadn't fully reached crazy yet.
No. And that's the thing that, like, with Thunderdome is, like, it hits that certain soft spot for that, but it just doesn't fully commit. I think that's the biggest issue.
I fully agree with that, and I think a lot of that is also, like, we watch bad movies.
Yes.
And we watch campy bad movies. And you could argue that there's a lot of Mad Max Thunderdome that is campy. But even the ones that we watch that are real campy never quite manage to stylistically hit like Mad Max does.
No.
And even Mad Max doesn't do it good. I think that part of the problem with this movie is that it was too early. I think if it had come out in the 90s, we could have smushed both of these plot points together much more successfully. We could have been more off the rails in general. They just hadn't figured out what that look was yet.
Hell, might have actually been better if the kids were living underneath part of town.
Yeah, or even just not make the children look so clean.
True.
Yeah, like they're like the ideas of like and thought are there. They just didn't translate well. Like the idea of the kids being the hope in the future, I get why their costumes are the way they are. I get why they live where they do. Sure, visually I see the theme you were trying to put, but it didn't read with the rest of the film.
Exactly.
And I think that if Mad Max had come out even in like the really late 80s, we would have passed that point already, and we wouldn't have had to worry about creating that stereotype for people to have to worry about.
Or if it dived into like the hyper violence of that era too. And that I think that's part of why like
they were definitely trying to not be in the same camp of movies that we normally watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a great part of Mad Max is like, yeah, it is out of this world, but it is accessible to everyone. Like, most people have heard of Mad Max, even if they haven't seen it. They at least have some idea of, like, one of the characters might look like. And honestly, a lot of people either know what one of the characters from the new one looks like, specifically Face Mask Man, or people remember what Tina Turner looks like. They might not realize, like, what's going on, but, like, iconically, like, there's a look to Mad Max that works. It just was a bit early.
Okay. Well, I guess at the end of it, Chris, do you recommend Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome?
With my whole heart. With my whole heart, I say yes. And the reason I say yes is because watching this one first before you watch Fury Road makes you appreciate Fury Road so much more. It makes you understand why people hype Fury Road, why people think that it is the masterpiece it is. Because we have come from this point of garbage.
Yeah.
To, honestly, a cinema masterpiece.
It took 20 years to make something good.
And we had to put a lot of shit down first to get to it.
Yeah, which is a V-Swick, Happy Feet 1 and 2.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm on the fence about recommending this. I guess I'd recommend it to, like, select people. Of
Sure.
Like, just giving them the caveat of, like, this movie does get really dumb towards the end.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I just can't I can't like you fully recommend this movie. Like, I maybe watch it as for the cultural icon it is. That's
Sure.
what I would recommend watching it for.
And I think if you're trying to get into the old Mad Max stuff, especially if you saw the first one, you liked it, but you never got around to the older stuff, this one is fun. Like, you will have a good time watching it until the children, and then you will, have to wait, and then you'll have fun again. But, like, this is much better than trying to do them chronologically. Watch them in order of funness.
Yeah, or whatever order you want.
Honestly, it makes no difference. And now that I've rewatched this again, I'm probably going to try and pick up the comics. No one has ever said the comics were good. But you know what? I made it through this again, so I'm going to try.
I think I'm good on Mad Max for a little bit. I
I understand, but post-apocalyptic junk has a special sweet spot in my heart.
Yeah.
One of these days I'm gonna get you to watch Tank Girl. She's right in there
I'm gonna get to Tank Girl.
She's much better than this, but like she is in here with them.
I need to watch Tank Girl too. But,
yeah, you do.
But anywho, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace!